We have a brand new free attraction in Jurassic World Evolution 2, the zipline. In this video, I want to show you 10 fun ways to incorporate the zipline into your park and make the attraction feel even more special, and answer the question on everybody's mind: will the pterosaurs attack the zipliners? Hello everyone, thank you so much for checking out this video. You can see right here, this is my Better Camp Cretaceous Park where I actually used electricity lines to simulate ziplines. I have now been able to replace them with proper ziplines, so that's super exciting. And obviously, just having a zipline go across an exhibit is a very simple way of using that in your park. But there are more fun spins you can put on that idea, and that's exactly what this video is about, to give you plenty of building inspiration with this brand new attraction. The first fun use of the ziplines that I wanted to show you is that the ziplines function as transport just as the other tour attractions in our park. You know, they're similar in a way that they have a point A and a point B with people going from one to the other, right? And that serves as transportation. So what you can do is use these zip lines to connect like an island that is enclosed by a lagoon with the rest of your park, as it does function that way. Now, technically, you only need one zip line connection. So one building on one side, one building on the island, and that functions to have everything in the island connected, right? But that's a little weird because it's a unidirectional way of transport. People only travel one way. You can't you can't go back, like climb your way back along the zip line to get back off the island. So realistically, for people not to get trapped on the lagoon island, I would suggest that you place two of these zipline attractions, so that's 4 towers in total, with one of them lowering into the lagoon island and one of them going out of it for obvious reasons, so that it just functions a little more naturally. And I think this is really cool, a really cool way to connect a separate island in your park. Makes it just feel really adventurous. I think you can do something really fun with an island like that. Maybe style it as more of a Camp Cretaceous campground kind of thing. And I think that would be super cool to just have like this island that feels a little bit more isolated from the rest of your park and only accessible through this very adventurous daredevil kind of way to get there. The second tip is a really quick one, and that is to place 2 zipline attractions as close together as possible, so your guests can sort of fly together in pairs. You know, if you go to the park with your dad or your mom or your friend or whatever, right? You want to go into one tower, they in the other, so you can have this experience together, wave to each other, say I love you before the T-Rex jumps up and eats you, that sort of stuff. I think that is really fun. Unfortunately, you cannot cross the zip lines, even though there is plenty of height difference to it, but that's unfortunately just not a feature in the game. If you are using mods, however, you can cross the lines. Third tip for the zip lines: the zip lines are actually quite tall, so the line itself is far off the ground. But what you can do is you can raise the terrain between the 2 towers to get the zip lines closer to the ground, or rather get the ground closer to the zip line. And of course, by having your zip liners get closer to the ground, you can get them closer to the dinosaurs, which might be a little bit unsafe. Maybe choose your dinosaurs wisely or have fun with it, whatever you want. But it's just a way to get your guests closer to the ground as they enjoy this attraction. Now, there is, of course, a max to how high you can raise the terrain between the 2 towers before the towers themselves actually start to rise up with what you're doing with the terrain, right? So you have to keep that in mind. But you can get it pretty close. Just don't go too far that the towers actually start going higher, which makes the line go higher, which defeats the purpose. Fourth, and one of my favorites, is using decorations close to the zip lines. What I really like doing is putting the redwood trees really close to the zip lines to make the guests feel like they are flying through the forest. Now, you don't have to use redwoods for this. You can use the other tree brushes as well, especially if you raise the terrain, as I showed in the previous tip. Like the regular terrain brush tools, or the regular foliage brush tools will get the trees right up there. You just want to avoid people actually like going through branches and leaves, because that's gonna hurt at that speed. It might even knock them off the zip line. But that's one thing that I really like, is this really epic sense, I feel. But even better than using the trees is using the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World tour gate right underneath the zipline. And this already creates a really cool effect with people like flying towards that iconic gate, but you can make it even better by again using the previous tip of raising the terrain higher so you can get the gate higher to the zipliners, and you can actually get it to a point where the zipliners just sort of fly in between the two taller pillars of the gate, and that creates this really fantastic experience, I think. And it's kind of, I think it's realistic, you know, it's theatrical and very theme park-esque to have something like that as an experience along the zipline. The fifth tip is another quickie, and that is put a viewing tower right by the zipline so people can watch other guests dangling precariously over the exhibits, and they can sort of live vicariously while they are safely in the tower. Unfortunately, there are limits to what you can put under the zipline. I was really happy to see that the tour gates fit under it, but buildings are a little bit more tricky. However, a building that I think is really cool to put under the zipline as much as possible is the Innovation Center. I think that is a really epic building for guests to come flying by and give them that other perspective of the architecture there, and to feel the grand scale of that building. Like, that building is an attraction in and of itself, right? And you want people to experience that, and perhaps like have an exhibit right by it so that after they've flown over the Innovation Center, they then fly over the exhibit and see the dinosaurs. As I said in the second tip, unfortunately, unless you are using mods, you cannot cross two ziplines together, but what you can do is put another attraction right below. So that will be either your Ford Explorer tour, your truck tour, or your Gyrosphere tour. I think running a tour under the zipline in combination with the raised ground really brings the zipliners and the people in the ground attraction close together, and it's going to be a fun perspective for both of them. I think it's fun for a zipliner to come flying on by and see the people in the cars, in the trucks, and conversely, I think it's fun to be sitting in the back of a truck and suddenly someone comes flying overhead. Is it safe? No. Can people be trusted with that sort of stuff and not expected to spit on each other or throw things at each other? No, unfortunately, humans do not work that way, but in an idealized version of humanity, that would totally work, no repercussions, and I just think it looks really nice, and I would certainly get a kick out of that. At the end of this video, we're gonna do a little experiment and see if our zipliners are safe when the flying reptiles have escaped. But for this 8th tip, I actually want to show a proper, safe way to combine the aviary with the zipline tour, and that is by creating like this long extended aviary and running a zipline right by it. Unfortunately, even though again there is plenty of height at certain points, you cannot cross a zipline over the aviary, again, unless you're using mods. Without mods, all you can do is run the zipline right along the aviary, but even that, I think, would be a pretty neat experience and give people sort of a sense of flying with the pterosaurs without being terrified. And again, same as with the Innovation Center, it just gives the guests a new perspective of what is really impressive architecture. That might be a very dumb thing to focus on in a dinosaur park, but again, it just gives that extra bit of luxury experience, I guess, to see the park from a different way, see the park infrastructure from a different way. What you can also do is not just have one aviary, but actually have two, with the zip line sort of sandwiched in between, so they can look either way and see the flying reptiles inside the aviaries, stuff like that. For this tips video, I'm still not using any mods, and that's what I want to show, what you can do with this new attraction in the base game. If you are using mods, obviously you can have the zipline run through the aviary, which is really, really awesome. You know, if you can suspend your disbelief to that extent. Tip number 9 is another fast one, and it sort of also harkens back to what I said with the Innovation Center, you know? Don't just run or fly the zipline over exhibits, you can also fly them over your guest areas, like your grand plazas, which gives the guests like this entirely new perspective of your park. And I think first and foremost, it's just a fun way for you to see your park in a different light. Tip number 10, the final tip, is a little bit out there. You do have to suspend your disbelief, but you know, as an alternative to having your zip lines go through the aviary, what you can also do is bring the flying reptiles outside of the aviary and have these zip liners experience flying among the pterosaurs that way. So you can use the hatchery glitch to release pterosaurs into the wild, have a big zip line run through their habitat, which they will naturally create, and then your guests can fly among the pterosaurs. And this is again just a tip that I think is really fun for yourself to experience, for yourself to just ride over and over, because it's just a fun thing to play with, I guess. But now comes the big question, right? Obviously, if you're going to use this in your park, you might want to turn combat off, you might want to turn hunger off, so the guests in your park in its entirety won't be attacked. But what about the zipliners specifically? Will the pterosaurs attack the zipliners? I tested this for about half an hour in full speed, I will say. Well, maybe half of that time, so 15 minutes in full speed. And unfortunately, as far as I've been able to experiment with, the pterosaurs will not attack the guests. And yes, I had hunger turned on, I had combat turned on, escapes, all of that stuff was turned on, like all of the worst case scenario stuff was turned on, and they didn't attack a single zipliner, so I don't think there's an animation for that. That's something that unfortunately Frontier didn't think of. That is a bit of a shame, especially considering that in the previous update they added those amazing pterosaur versus helicopter attack animations, so it would have been really, really cool and also really dark to see the pterosaurs attack the zipliners, but as far as I can tell, they don't do that. Same with regular dinosaurs, same with the mosasaurs and the chronosaurs. They will not attack the zipliners. So if you were hoping for that, that is a bit of a disappointment. I guess I am a little bit disappointed about that as well. But overall, I think it's a fantastic attraction. And personally, I think this is a way better gift than just a single dinosaur species getting added to the game. I know that that's something most people were expecting, and perhaps something many people were hoping, but I think Jurassic World Evolution 2 needs attractions, way more than it needs more dinosaurs. I'm very happy with this gift, and I hope that this video has inspired you to get the most out of this gift and use this new attraction in your park in really cool ways. Of course, I will be using the ziplines in my future park builds, and I hope that I can come up with even more ideas for using the ziplines. Obviously, we've only had them today, so these were just like the first 10 things that popped into my head to use them, and I wanted to share that with you. But if you want more tips and just see how I am going to use these ziplines in my own parks, then please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the zipline attraction.